Ho, ho. So that's how a pointing out instruction works. If you feel into the silence, pointing out instruction, I distinguish between silence of presence and silence of absence. As we open our eyes and step back into the personal space, but the personal that's now been breathed on, that's been infused, that's been touched by the transpersonal. We would call it in integral language a state stage, or in Sufism, the distinction between haq and makam. Right? But actually it comes back to the personal. It transforms the personal. It softens the edges and invites us in, and we actually engage, right, what Luria called v'ra'ita et achorai. I see God from behind, meaning aftertaste. Aftertaste, right? What's the difference between like fantastic food, right, and just like 3 Baby Ruth bars? Right? Baby Ruth bars rock. They're fantastic. Right? And growing up, Bexley, Ohio, right, you know, I mean, oh my God, Baby Ruth bars. 3 Baby Ruth bars, really bad aftertaste. All right, really bad. All right, 4, I've done it. Really bad. Fantastic, elegant French meal, right? Just the right aftertaste. Wow. Aftertaste always is the pointing out instruction about what happened. Great sex, right, in the context of the sacred, whatever that is to you, the context of the sacred, right, and great sex out of the context of the sacred, which in the context which for you is fallen. Distinction between them, aftertaste. Aftertaste is always the place we see God from behind. Okay? We see God from behind. So silence of presence and silence of absence. See that? It's a pointing out instruction. It's that you can feel the difference between, right, if you grew up when I grew up, what Simon and Garfunkel called the sounds of silence, that great song from the 60s, late 60s, they never quite repeated. Okay, I mean, you see the difference? I mean, how many people have been on, you've fallen in love, so how many people have been on a date? You've all been on a date, right? Just show of hands, been on a date? Good date? Yeah, how was it? Okay, so remember a bad date? How many people have been on a bad date, right? So I'll just give you just a 1-second bad date story as a pointing out instruction, and then we kind of move to the next part of the introduction. Okay, and we'll get started at some point, okay? Right, so here we go. So I'm like 21 years old, I'm in Manhattan, and my cousins, brothers, gardeners, uncles, accountants, sister-in-law's friend, right, set me up on this date. It's true, right? And we both get there, and we're like near Lincoln Center, 66th Street and Broadway, wherever that is, and I'm sure if she could have like gotten rid of me in the first minute, it's just a bad idea. It just didn't, right? We couldn't write. But there were all these people involved. So we had to kind of sit and talk and sit and talk. And like we sit and talk and we, 3 hours go by. Thank God there was a movie in those 3 hours. That was, I mean, blessed for both of us. Right? She has a car. I need a ride to the A train going uptown, right, to Riverdale. And so we get into her car. It's like 7 minutes to the train, and there was nothing left to say. You know that place? There's like nothing left to say. And there were no more words to cover over the silence. And a kind of silence of absence settled on the car. And if she had an eject button, she would have pressed it, right? I might have, right? It's like, it was horrendous, right? So it's like 8 months later, and on the same street corner, because that's where I was living, right, I meet an old friend. We hadn't seen each other in ages from high school. And we just kind of sat, we had coffee, and we talked for like 8 hours. We had this, one of my closest, right, fantastic, right, I happened to have a car then, right, she needs to get, downtown to the village, right, it's about 7 minutes to the train, and we get into the car, and this silence settles on the car, right, and there's just no need to talk. It was just, right, like words would have been in the way, right? So that's not a silence of absence, it's a silence of presence, okay? So the way the litmus test of the enactment lives in the aftertaste